Hello and welcome to the York Creators Podcast. My name is Ben Porter, and each week you can join me as I chat to someone from York's creative community. This week's guest is Colin Black. Colin is an art teacher who recently moved to York with his wife Sallie to set up an art school. After graduating with an MA from the Royal College of Art in London, he worked for several design companies before becoming a senior lecturer and head of design at Leith School of Art, where he has been for nearly 25 years before moving to York. In this episode we discuss how you go about teaching people to see creatively, why people feel drawn to the arts, and what it was that separated his best students from the rest. Colin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ben.
So how are things going? Because you've just moved to York quite recently. How long have you been here and how are you finding
I think we've been here about 14 weeks.
Okay.
I think it might be 12, 14 weeks, something like that. It was just about Easter time.
Mm-hmm.
Time has gone by really quickly. But it's been, I feel, because we've had to move, we've had to buy, a new house, we've had to, do this place up, and we've had to find somewhere to sort of start business, really. So there's been a lot going on. I look back, and I think my wife said that we've actually had about 12 tradespeople come in our house in the last, 3 months.
So how are you finding it so far? I'd be interested to know, as a newcomer, what's your perspective on York?
My wife and I were originally from Sallie. We're originally from London, brought up in North London. Then we moved. We had our family, 2 boys. Then we moved as a young family up to Edinburgh. Edinburgh's a smaller, very small city compared with London. York is an even smaller city than Edinburgh. Yeah,
there's quite a lot of similarities between the two.
So we're gradually getting more and more sort of tinier and tinier. Yeah. So York it's a lovely place. It's got it's a city. It's got all the amenities of a city, but it's accessible. And I still love cycling. So the whole thing of cycling, getting on a bike and cycling from one side of the city to the other, it's actually flat.
Yeah, nice and easy.
Compared with all the hills of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So it's been really, really good.
What about the creative stuff? What's kind of stood out that you've discovered so far?
In York, I think there seems to be a lot of things going on. The last weekend, there was this flower festival thing that was going on. There seems to be lots of people doing lots of things. There always seems to be something to go to. If you're never sort of bored at a weekend because there's always, somebody's always putting a leaflet in your hand.
Yeah.
And they're saying, come to this or, get involved in this or whatever. So it seems to be lots going on.
So what was it that brought you to York?
Right. Well, I've taught at Leith School of Art, which is the dock area of Edinburgh, for 24 years. And a lot of places say this, but I don't think it's actually true, but they actually believe in teaching, and they believe that art can be taught and design can be taught. So at the college, I was teaching students, I often say I'm teaching them how to see, how to look a little bit closer, a bit deeper at the things that are around them, and usually trying out things. That was the nature of the foundation course. They tried out things, they saw what they liked, what they disliked, and so they have more of a choice of which direction they want to go in life.
Why do you think it's a good thing for people to be involved in the arts?
I think because it's a very good question. Why do you ask me a question again?
Why is it good for people to be involved in the arts?
I think it does something to culture. It does something, it adds something. The amount of people that go around the Tate Modern, or they go to cultural events at the weekend, it enriches people's lives. And I think the arts are much more engaging. They actually touch humanity at a deeper level. And I think that's what makes people gravitate towards it. They think there's something, I'm not just made up of, I'm not just a DNA, I'm not just made up of cells. There's spirit as well. I'm not just there is something in me that needs to be touched much deeper. And I think the arts can do that. I mean, that's why people go to listen to music and, go to the theatre, go to the Tate Modern. I mean, Tate Modern is one of the most frequented places now. I mean, it's people just gravitate towards it because they find something there that actually satisfies them, maybe at a deeper level. And I think we all need that. We've all got this craving to be satisfied deeper in ourselves. Yeah.
So how do you teach that?
How do you teach that? People often know that there's something that they want to express. They want to create their own, maybe as you call it, a visual language, their own way of saying something visually. As a teacher, I think you're there to enable them and to direct them in that particular way. And it doesn't, it has to come from them. But I think great teachers, some of my teachers that I look back and think that they were very influential on me, were people that didn't sometimes speak. They just allowed me to speak, and they allowed it pauses, I suppose, in a conversation to say, well, what do you think? And a lot of students say, I don't know, I haven't got any ideas. I don't know what to express, I don't know. And I may often say, well, what do you like? That's often the first question. What do you find fascinating? What do you like? What do you find interesting? And they'll say, well, I might be interested in derelict buildings or something. That's really boring, isn't it? I say, well, no. If you really look at what that subject is and start researching it and start looking at it and investigating it and maybe spending time with it and photographing it and drawing it and finding out what you want to say about derelict buildings, then it becomes something that only you have really thought about, and that's the start of your own personal work. And I think that's really exciting for people to realise that we're all individuals and we've all got something to say, we've all got something to express.
Coming back to the art school, what's the vision?
The vision is to teach anybody how to see, and that means for them to be able to teach people to look more sensitively and more carefully. You can teach colour, you can teach about colour, you can teach about composition, all the fundamentals of art and design you can teach. I suppose I grew up I went to Chelsea School of Art, went to the Royal College of Art, and there were some tutors there that were brilliant and some tutors that were just a waste of space, and they didn't really teach. They didn't believe in teaching. I think there was a mentality, certainly within the 80s and 90s, that maybe even now, that if you teach a student, you're actually stifling their creativity, because it means that you as a teacher are actually putting your views upon a particular student. And then I suppose the danger is that student then becomes a little version of the tutor. But I think that's such a negative way of seeing art schools and seeing teaching. It's, you wouldn't go into to do a science degree and then, your tutors, to say, well, we're not going to teach you anything. We're going to, just get on with it. You'd be taught all the history of science and what's gone before and all that stuff. So I don't think art is any different.
It also undermines the students' ability to have their own taste, because you could teach me to always paint in brown, but that's not going to stop me from suddenly discovering there's also yellow and blue and green and all these other colours.
Yeah.
So
and it's passing on information. Art and design has got histories of decades and decades of what has gone before. And so if you're informed, if you start from an informed position as a student, it doesn't mean you accept everything. You don't swallow everything. My best students were those that confronted me with what I said to them and argued their case. And I might change my opinion, but that's the point of we used to call it sharpening each other up. It's about, it's actually getting to the nub of what it's all about. And if there's a student that says, well, I totally disagree with you, I would say, well, tell me, argue the case, tell me why you disagree.
So who are your courses aimed at?
Well, we have a summer school coming up. It's a 3-week summer school in August. We've put on the flyer all abilities, 16 plus. So not for under 16s, but, if there's somebody that's 15 and a half or 3/4, then, we'll say, yeah, come on, come on board. It's fine, absolutely fine. And really, yes, it's for ages, all ages and abilities. Because some people, I found, people that think, oh, I'm really good, I've been doing this for years. Actually, when you see what they've done, maybe they've plateaued a wee bit. Maybe they're just doing the same thing time and time again, and they're going over the same ground.
Yeah.
So that in themselves, they might think, oh, I'm pretty proficient. But maybe technically they're very proficient. But then somebody else who says, oh, I haven't drawn for years, or I've just done these few little scribbles and I don't think they're very much. And I might, as a teacher, might look at them and think, no, they're really good. You've actually, you're actually trying to do something there. You're trying to do something different. You're trying to develop your ideas quite interestingly. So I never sort of say, sometimes I think that somebody who thinks themselves are actually at the early stages probably can actually go a long way in a short period of time because they've got the right attitude. I'd always prefer to have somebody with an open attitude to wanting to, like we just said, trying things out, than somebody that thinks that they know it all.
Yeah.
And you can't teach me anything, type of thing, because they've immediately doing this, in their brain, in their head, they're saying, nah. But somebody that is just, I'm a clean slate here. I don't know anything. Just throw at me anything you like, and I'm going to take it because there's nothing here. Sometimes that's quite good.
Do you have a building already?
Yes, it's at. My wife and I came to York. We knew that we wanted to do this thing, and we got in contact with a Methodist minister called Andy Linley, and he's got it's on Bishop Thorpe Road, Bishy Road, and it's in the Methodist Hall. It's a massive, great big building, and it's got a small congregation there. But Andy's got this vision of wanting to make it into an art centre, and for it, and it's being used at the moment. I mean, they do book out rooms now already for for drama, for people to practice their music and their performances and things. But it's just a great venue for it to become a centre, a hub for creativity, and and it's a great place to run art courses. I mean, it's a wonderful sort of semicircle of a building, and it's got a balcony, and they've got a vision for partitioning off the balcony and making it into art studios. Not that all those artists then go into their own little individual space and lock the door. And what they really want is for it to become a community. So people do come out of their space and they engage in conversation, and they have chats with each other, and they look over the balcony and they see art courses going on. They see a bit of life drawing going on. The plan, I think the real vision for the place is that it does become a place where people talk about creativity, and they talk about the creative process and what does that actually mean. Because I think, as we said earlier, I think it does enrich people's lives. There's a real unity. I think when I talk to anybody within any creative industry, whether it's a musician or whatever, in broadcasting, whatever, there's a common language that you can get into. You say, well, how did you arrive at that solution? What pathway, what course of creativity, that developmental creative process did you go through? What did you have to jettison? What did you put to one side to allow that thing to become the main focus? And I think making something work, and whether it's a piece of poetry or whatever, it's the same. I call it distilling process, of going through. I've got all this stuff to start with. What do I want to hold on to? What do I distill, and what do I cream off? What do I jettison, really? I remember listening to a fantastic thing about Leonard Cohen. I think it was him actually talking on the radio, And one of his poems, I think he started off with like 40 verses for this poem. And he gradually whittled it down and distilled the language and the meaning of that language. And, to, I think maybe 3 or 4 verses. It's like when you look at a bit of writing or a bit of, like a piece of script or on a piece of paper, like a Morecambe and Wise sketch or whatever it is, and how they've crossed things out. And they say, right, we don't need that. That's not funny. We can say that better in a different way. And it's gradually paring it down to the very bare essentials what you really want to say, I suppose, really. So I think that as a process is common to anybody that engages within the creative, in a creative way.
So how can people get in touch and find out more?
Well, we have flyers, paper flyers, but you can go on seekartschool.co.uk. I think that's just going live. So when this comes out, hopefully it's fine. You can find me on Facebook, and that's, so it's on there as well.
Cool. And you're happy for people to ask you questions and things like that if they're not quite sure?
Absolutely. I mean, engaging in conversation is the best way, because if there's any concerns or anybody's worried about anything, or if they don't think they're going to fit in, or they think it's incredible how much people worry about it. And I think once people arrive and they relax and they just start doing stuff, then they think, oh, actually, I'm really enjoying this. And I think it's often the fear of the unknown, really, that is the thing that stops people from trying stuff out.
Yeah, it should just be playful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think one of my heroes is Grayson Perry, the cross-dressing potter, as he calls himself. And he's a great broadcaster, and he's a great communicator. And he's done so much for the arts because he appeals on that very common ground level, and he speaks everybody's language, I think. But he talks about serious play, and I think it's an oxymoron. It's like people think serious play. Surely those two things don't get together. But I always say, if you look at a child that's playing with the sand and the water at nursery school, and you look at their face, they are learning so much. They're totally concentrating, and they're pouring water into a bucket, and they're pouring it on the sand, and they're making sandcastles. There's a seriousness to it, but they're totally absorbed, and they're totally enjoying the whole tactile experience of making sandcastles or something. So I think if you can combine that desire, the playfulness is really important. Because I think to play means that you're generally having fun, aren't you? And you're just in the moment. You're just you're not worried about it. You're just doing it, and you're seeing what happens. And I think that's often where creativity really comes into its own.
That sounds great, and I'm sure there'll be quite a lot of people wanting to come along.
Thank you, Ben.
Cool. Well, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you.